Eswail Chumantala Squi Lita Cham Kwalstat. My English name is Carrie Lynn. My Chwalmo Squi is Chumantala. Chumantalat is a sister name to Chamatia. And Chamatia is Lhilheqey's baby. And at the beginning of the word Chamatia or Chamtia is Cham. And Cham is crying. And the name Chamatia describes that this young baby is always crying. So Chiam Peak comes down like this, and then right at her breast is Chamatia, and Chamatia's tears are forming bridal falls. So the place is described through the action of always crying and about Lhilheqey's daughter. And whenever I introduce myself to a group of people, I'll introduce that and introduce that there's a responsibility to that place, to understanding the history of that place and to teaching about that place, but also I believe the preservation and protection of that place is important too as part of that name. The Pacalco series came from the Shuohuyan, the mountain goat people of Chiang, and more specifically came from one part of the story. So the part of the story where the young man starts hiking up the mountains and he's tracking the mountain goats, and he comes to the meadow and the two young women are disrobed is where I just stop the story. Like, stop the story, what's going on? If there's two young women in the meadow, naked, and they're together in the sun by themselves, I want to know what they're doing. Call me nosy or like voyeuristic, but I think it's part of our responsibility to explore the meaning in a story, like as Stalo individuals, but it's also like it's also just a natural curiosity I have. So when I went kind of like in my imagination into that part of the story, I dove into my own past and my own understanding of what women do when they're naked and they're alone. And I had some really I had some really dirty assumptions that have kind of been like pushed down, right? But I acknowledge where I'm at with my sexuality, and I acknowledge that the spectrum of individuals and their sexual preferences has always existed. As long as there have been people, there have been all these, you're born loving who you love, right? And in this case, these young women weren't married, and I'd imagine at the time that they were not allowed to be promiscuous with men. So my assumption was that they were satisfying each other somehow, or sunbathing, but that chances are that didn't happen thousands of years ago. So enjoying themselves nonetheless. When Resurrect invited artists to show their work at their exhibit, the first thing I thought of was to put together these mountain goat ladies in like an old Edward Curtis type photograph. So I drew up the sketch, and then I called in some models, and I bought some body paint, and I called a photographer, and I got us all together and kind of wined and dined the models and told them to be ready for anything, and then was directing them in the shots. And when the pieces came together and I saw those women standing there for the first time in photograph form, and all those the possibilities of performance and other photographs and other stories being told the same way really brought me home. It's definitely helped strengthen my bond. To go and speak to that mountain for guidance. I never would have done that project if it wasn't for Lhilheqey's presence, right? As much as as old as she is, her voice is still just booming